when it comes to Juan Soto and then adding on Pete Alonso in general, his market is obviously going to be a lot different because of the first baseman market. Even though it's not as deep, you have Christian Walker out there, who we talked about video last week, me and Andrew, guys that we would prefer to avoid and more move things around of constructing the roster.
Can I ask you guys a question?
Yeah.
That I asked Ibby on our show. I'm curious to know what the three of you guys think about this. So I asked him, but I posed it to him with my thought. If the Mets aren't going to bring back Alonso, I would rather sign Carlos Santana on a 1-year deal than Christian Walker to anything more than a 1-year deal. So I would rather have a 40-year-old Carlos Santana for 1 year than Christian Walker on a multiple year deal. Do you guys agree or disagree?
I'm in the same boat with Walker. I think that anytime, because my thing with Alonso is that if I didn't get Alonso, let's say Soto's not involved, but it would be because of term. It'd be because of years. I'm like, oh, I don't want to pay a guy into age 37 or whatever. Meanwhile, Christian Walker, you're basically paying everything 35 and above if you go multi-year. So your reason for not getting Alonso should not be then your reason to sign Christian Walker. It just feels very counterproductive. So I'm okay with any other scenario, honestly. Like, yeah, I'm even okay with no Santana. I'm okay with give me Vientos, let Acuna play, let Mauricio play, and like we've talked about a Moncada, an Urshela, or whatever, just for now, and then just kind of see what happens, and then focus on pitching. Since if I didn't get Soto and I didn't get Alonso, I'm going all in on pitching. Like Corbin Burns is mine, maybe Snell on a short term. Like I'm going crazy on pitching and just seeing what happens, because to me, if let's say any of these other teams make another big move, like the Mets need more pitching to compete. I keep saying it, but when you're in the playoffs and you're giving up 10 runs, 8 runs, 9 runs, it's hard to win like that. It's impossible. So you got to lower that run total. They need to get better in the pitching department. So if they don't have an Alonso or a Soto and they're not going crazy there, then I'm not going to do it elsewhere. I mean, there's just, and I don't see Stearns doing that either. He's not going to overpay for guys who are not worth it. So I just don't see that happen.
I've seen the Mets kind of just be put into that type of market as to where there's these pivots to the top guy. We know that Alonso is the top first baseman on the market right now, but then there's also Christian Walker. To me, it kind of just looks like the Realmuto McCann dilemma. I'm not saying that Christian Walker is ever going to be McCann, because I think Christian Walker is a lot better of a player than that. But what I'm saying is that when you look at Christian Walker in this free agency, and I know there are a lot of people that have been in our chat that have talked about maybe him as a possible Alonso replacement. First baseman, it should not be spent big, and it has to be a big cornerstone looking at it for somebody like Christian Walker, or if it's Pete Alonso, who's been a cornerstone to this franchise, whether he has regressed or not, or whether you don't think he's going to produce this way or not. If you're anti-Alonso, you want him to go. He's been a cornerstone to this franchise for 6 years, no matter what, if you agree to him staying or not. And if they do bring him back, it makes sense as to why they would. But then you look at the first baseman market, you see Mark Vientos is viable. I mean, I personally would sign Carlos Santana, mainly just because of the overall value that you would get. Not just really just like penny pinching in that way. I'm not saying that he is the perfect fit. And, you know, I'm not saying it's a last resort either. But when it comes to somebody like Carlos Santana, he's been established. At any point, he could fall off because he's almost 40 years old. But again, this is someone who, you know, can be a 20 to 25 home run bat, was a 3-win player last year, and also one of the best defensive first basemen in all of baseball. Whether you think Pete Alonso is a serviceable defender or not, or whether you think Pete Alonso is not a good defender and you believe that he should just be a DH for a majority of his career, Carlos Santana, by a huge margin, is one of the best defensive first base. You never know if you're going to be putting somebody like Mark Vientos at third base. If the throws go wild, you're going to need somebody backing it up there. I would consider definitely doing that if Pete Alonso were to walk, because then you also can address other things, you know, on your team, like the pitching staff in that regard.
That was my point of posing the question, because I think the Mets, to be successful, to compete with the big lineups in the National League, the Mets need to sign Soto and Alonso. That's been my stance since day one. I think they need to have a deeper lineup, a more powerful lineup. I don't think, obviously Soto is better, and if you ask me who do I want, one or the other, and I can only have one, I'd rather have Soto. But I think the Mets need both kinds of players. But to your point before about Stearns pivoting to Christian Walker, who, like Frank said, is 4.5 years older than Pete already, and did most of that in a hitter's haven, and did most of that late in his career. To me, that does not feel like a Stearns move. Then just pay Alonso. So I think a Stearns move is, well, you know what? We'll get Santana. No such thing as a bad one-year deal. We'll run with that, and then we can fill out the roster in other spots, knowing that we do have Soto.
And the biggest thing that everyone always says when it comes to Walker is, oh, he's a 10 times better defender than Pete. Well, it's like, well, as Armand just brought up in the chat, it's like, well, this guy, even though he's 38, you can get him for 1 year, 21 homers, 71 RBIs. I just put in the chat, according to Savant, his expected home runs would have been 25, which would have been third, if it was at City. So having that, and he won a Gold Glove. So you're talking so much about Walker as a better defender. Well, then just take the cheaper guy with just as good numbers, and then allow yourself to spend in other areas. It doesn't make sense. And if he has the qualifying offer attached to him as well, which is going to turn down, you're not giving him the pick either. So I don't see how Walker makes any sense at all for this team.
That's another good point. Could you imagine giving up a pick? I don't care what the money is, and I know draft picks or whatever, but if you could just sign Alonso and you're going to give up a pick to sign Christian Walker, like, to me, that is like penny smart, dollar foolish. It doesn't make sense to me. I know Alonso's deal will be longer and will be for more money than Christian Walker, but when you think about giving up the pick, when you think about a guy who's never played in New York, and you think about, it's like, why just sign Alonso? What? Just sign Alonso. It makes so much more sense.
And I think another concern when you sign a guy who's 34, you think about health. Let's not forget Christian Walker finished the year with an oblique injury, something that Pete Alonso has never had. He's never had a hamstring. He's never had an oblique or anything like that. So Christian Walker's already giving you signs that his body is on the decline. So why would you sign a long-term deal when the guy's already showing his health is going the wrong way? And a couple more things about Santana. He's a good fit. You guys mentioned in the video the high on base percentage, which is something this team could use with their tendency to chase with the bases loaded. Santana doesn't do that. And the fact that switch hitter, give you a little bit more, we say a little right-handed heavy. There's no lefty in your lineup, which Christian Walker also right-handed. So there's just multiple reasons why Santana is the better fit. But I just think overall the Walker thing, I have never really been into it, but I don't think so. I think if you want 1 year deal, fine.
Sure.
Anything more than one, no way.
And you add to the fact that Pete Alonso played in all 175 of the games that the Mets played. The best ability is availability. That is true. It is true. It is true. And you're going to give up on that guy for a guy who is 4.5 years older, who, like you said, had a potentially, kind of debilitating injury that will kind of creep back up. Usually you start getting obliques. You don't stop getting obliques as you get older. So, yeah, all great points.
I mean, I'm looking at it right now with Santana, dead pole hitter, so I'll take it. I mean,
not until Eric Chavez gets it. Wait a minute, I got an idea for you, Carlos. How do you like the opposite field? I have some ideas
little poke for you. The other way. Nice little poke.
Will be, that will be the way that the Mets will ruin him, and he'll just age into oblivion. But that's something else that you can look at.
I mean, yeah, it definitely is a financial benefit. Like, and if you're telling me you're going after Burns and you're going up, then I'll take the offensive downgrade power-wise and cheaper to go for Santana. If you're telling me, you're going in Burns, you're in Snell, you're in that, okay. But if you're telling me that, okay, this is the straight-up Alonso replacement and he's going to, let's say, bring back Minaya and Severino, then I think we're going to have a conversation like, okay, then no. But if we're just talking strictly a Christian Walker versus Carlos Santana for like 1 year, $5 million compared to like 3 years, probably going to be $17 a year at minimum, probably for what Walker's going to do. Again, it's cheap. It's an option. And it gives you, again, what we always say, you could still, maybe if you go out and you put him at first, you can move Vientos to DH, and let's say you bring another defensive first corner outfield, or maybe an upgraded power guy for third. It's an option. It's never a bad thing to have better options as a veteran leader. The difference with Walker's aging, Santana's keeping this up as he ages. So at least we know, like, Santana's aging and still being the same. We don't know what that question mark is of Christian Walker. So, again, if you're telling me if Alonso's walking, which, he would like him back, But if, he has to go get overpaid by somewhere else, and if you're telling me it's Walker or Santana, I'll take Santana.